chat a little bit about Path of the Protege. Yeah?
That's right, yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's start with community and House Lark stuff first, and then we'll do Path of the Protege.
Okay, it just basically was, I noticed you got two major groups. One's Convergence and one is Profit Follows Passion.
Mm-hmm.
So am I effectively a member of both those communities?
Yes, so the way that it works is that Profit Follows Passion is your specific, sorry, hang on a second. That's your community solely for Sphere 2. Convergence is literally the converging of all of the other House Larks. So at Sphere 0 and 1, there's two other communities. There's a Sphere 0 community called the Auroras, that's 0 through 10, and then there's also a different Sphere 1 going on for the people that are through 10 through 20, and those are each in their own separate communities. So you're only with people that are from 21 to 30. And then, like, Alexandra just jumped in, so she'll hang out with you in Convergence, and you guys can all meet and mingle, but her community is part of Aurora's, which you're not in because you're not in that 0 to 10 frame. And when she gets ready to level up momentarily, then she'll get to join Sphere 1. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So do I actively get involved with Convergence as a community?
So Convergence is just, it's a general common room. So we have a bunch, like right now we have the 30-day competition going on, and you guys can participate in that. It widens your outreach. So if you get tired of hearing from the same 12 to 15 people in your Sphere 2, you can go into Convergence and get other opinions from other people that you don't talk to regularly. So it just kind of widens it out and gives you more connections. And all of my people are awesome people, so you should all know each other anyway. Sure.
I fully concur with that.
Yeah, so Convergence is totally optional. You don't have to do anything in there. It's just a common room.
Okay. Just recently you've been setting tasks with regards to photographs with a theme. For instance, lifestyle is the latest one. Should I get involved with that as well, or is that,
it's optional.
Up to me? It's optional. Okay, fine.
Yeah. It's totally optional. So it's just for personal growth and for the people that have a sense of fun and competition and want to go in. So those ones with the daily theme are part of the 30-day competition. Whoever wins the most of the individual 30 days, I'm sending a signed copy of the limited edition book to. Or you guys can make a counter offer for something else that you would like as your trophy.
Okay.
So it's just fun. It's just for...
Yeah, I'll be quite honest with you. Obviously, joining in, I wonder if I should be getting involved with this or whether I should be concentrating more on the Profit Follows Passion community. But it's nice to know you've got another community where I can get involved as well.
Yeah, it's both. And it's really good for the Sphere 2 people because I sat down with most of you last week, which took up a good part of the week to sit and see where you guys are and where you're looking to be. So it's going to be some time while I'm building. It takes about 3 to 5 days for each of you after I meet with you to go through, check out your social media, check out your websites, based on where you said you wanted to be, find some good competition and do some research, especially with a lot of you not being in my genre or in my locale for, pricing and all that good stuff. So while you guys are waiting for those to be built, it just gives you some other people to mingle with and some good activities.
I'm with it. Okay, so that was going to be my next question. With regards to the Sphere, I see there's nothing actually set up in my, what's the word I'm looking for? In my sort of area.
In your room, yeah.
Yeah, you're getting round to that.
Yeah, so I spent most of today in between Hangouts building and working on Raise. But they're all individualized based off of our Hangouts. So I have literally an entire notebook full of notes of you guys.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I understand it. Are we still due to have an individual chat about that, or are you just now building from what you know from the information you gleaned from conversations and what you're researching?
We already did that.
We've done that.
You and I sat down last week, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have...
You got good notes.
I have everybody except for Nicholas. He's the only one I have a meeting with him next week. Um, but yeah, so this week will be mostly Sphere 1 building for you guys based on what you said you wanted to do. Okay. And then, so basically what's going to happen is in each of you guys at Sphere 2, you have your name, and when you go in there, the first post will be from me, and it will be one post, and it'll say your level 11 or level 21, level 22, level 23. These are your tasks. So you'll read through that, and you'll sign off on it before you start and go, yes, this sounds like exactly what I need. I fully agree. Or you'll go, I don't know about level 24. I feel like that's not really in the right direction, which is totally fine, but then you have to make the amendment and take control of your path and go, I'd rather do this. I feel like this would be more beneficial. And then I'll say, okay, or let's meet halfway and do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That does make sense. Okay, that's fine. So, yeah, sit and wait from that front. That's no problem at all. Watching the convergence conversations in chat, that's great. Profit full of passion, and then obviously those communities as well, sharing photographs and the like. Yeah, that's fine. No problem at all. So really, from my aspect, just wanted to talk to you about the path of protege. Is this better for us to do a one-on-one about it, or are we okay to talk about this now?
No, we'll discuss that too. While we're on the topics of House Lark and communities, sure. Is there anything the rest of you guys are having trouble with or want clarification on? Or you can just sit and look at me.
No silly faces.
Hi,
I had one question on the. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I had one question on the. You put an invite in Convergence for the next Creation Wars. Is that more for the Convergence folks, or is that for Duplicate?
All of you are Convergence. If you are in House Lark, you're a member of Convergence. So that's all of the different cohorts converged into one. I was very, very selective on the name. So Convergence as a community is a really good way for me to put out information like that applies to Sphere 0, 1, and 2. So next Monday, not tomorrow, but the following week, they're doing a House Lark feature. So I can go on and I can do whatever I want for an entire hour. I'm going to critique a few of the images that are in the Creation Wars community, but I can also bring work from you guys. I can bring a few of you on as honored guests. I thought about having maybe the Sphere 2 people come act as guest judges and bring a work from one of the Sphere 1 or 0 people. But you have to wear war paint and you have to come with your game face and come compete. And, like, you know, bring your victor to battle kind of thing. But it's totally open, so we can have a conversation about that too and find a fun way to do it. But I would love to do something collaborative with all you guys rather than just me being there and talking for an hour. So we can start a conversation about that. But at the least, if you're not interested in actually being there and sitting online with me and you want to be featured, just drop your best images in, because I'm going to select 3 or 4 of them to take with me and be like, this is my cohort. I own these people. They're mine. So that's the idea.
Okay, cool.
What else? What's on your minds? If not, I'm just going to talk to Paul the whole time.
That'd be pretty boring.
Jessica,
I
I watched most of last week's Hangout post.
Okay.
But, it was on sponsorships.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got curious and thought about, you said you gave David a challenge, and he had to come up with 100 sponsors. And I thought, gee, I wonder if I could do that. So, I don't know, about 5 minutes ago, I sat down and thought, well, if I were to create sponsors, like, where would they come from? And, like, who would want to sponsor me for different kinds of things? And I actually came up with, like, 16 different categories.
Awesome.
So, I may want to explore that a little, you know, as we walk down the path.
I think that's a great idea. That's definitely a challenge that I'm thinking about doing. So for those of you that are at level 2, this doesn't really concern you, but what we did at Sphere 1, like Morgan's in it, I test ran what we're doing with Sphere 2 with my Sphere 1 people. you guys that are coming up, we're not going to do that because it's an impossible amount of work to do for 50 apprentices. It's definitely a Sphere 2 kind of thing. But what I want to do is I want to design levels 11 through 20 under the concept of one of my favorite poems by Robert Frost that talks about two paths diverging in the wood. And so at each level, you get to choose path A or path B, path A being towards artistry and path B being towards entrepreneurship. So you choose which one benefits you based on your own personal goals. So maybe we'll do that and talk about sponsorships and we use the word sponsors a lot, but it's more about business relationships. Like I can only think of like Sigma. I definitely think of as a sponsor because they send me their products and they sponsor and paid for me to teach when I was teaching on the American Photo Mag tour where I was going all over the country. They were covering all that. So that's different than having the relationship that I have with Fineo, which I feel is really symbiotic. And you know, Christine will drop me a line all the time and be like, I love this image, I want to get it printed, okay, here you go, and I'll send that to her, and that benefits her, you know, and at the same time, I'll be like, hey, I really want to try this out, let's put some images together. So we just kind of go back and forth, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship more than it is a sponsorship, which I think is how all of you should be looking towards potential connections. But I love the idea of thinking outside of the photography realm for your connections and your sponsorships. I think that'd be a really good level. So.
All outside of photography.
And you already have half of it done, so like 5 karma points to you for being an overachiever. I love it.
I just got curious. I heard this quote this morning. It said something about obstacles. It's called like obstacles are just opportunities, or a new way to look at opportunities that you just didn't know were there.
They really are. Going back to David, he hated me that level, but it worked. And he was planning on doing some of that anyway. It's just, and this is what I think the Arcanum is supposed to be. Like he knew he had to reach out to people, and he had a few people he was thinking of, but having someone hold you accountable to do it, to do more than you were going to do, that's where we start to see the real growth. And he got some incredible sponsorships from camping companies and like cold weather gear and all kinds of different things that have nothing to do with photography, but that they'll benefit from him taking pictures of their cold weather camping gear at the top of some mountain in the Himalayas, you know, that they wouldn't otherwise have like an advertising photo of, and that'll sell more people than being like, here's our white box version of the tent with our product photography. And so I think it goes from advertising into endorsement then, and I think he's a really good candidate for that. They can look at that and see that as well. On the other hand, I don't want you guys to get burnt out. And I had a lot of people that were getting burnt out doing this at Sphere 1, so I'm curious to see with you guys at Sphere 2 if you guys have a little more stamina, if we've trained hard enough that you have the endurance to go further because we've gotten out of those foundation levels. So I have higher expectations for you. But the Sphere 1s, like Morgan will warn you, it's tough. It's a tough sphere. That said, the people that are at Sphere 1 currently that I did build the custom spheres for, when Sphere 1 opens for Auroras, which it's doing right now, because Chantal was the first one to pass today and make her level 11, you guys will have the option to abandon your custom spheres and go through as a group from 11 to 20 as well. So you can decide what works for you. And I think that'll be helpful. Other questions? Steve is just chomping at the bit. Like he's like got all his dogs latched up to a dog sled and is just rolling for level 11.
I can't wait to get my room done. See what's in it.
So I'm doing them basically in order of acceptance, how quick you guys were to accept the invites, which also feeds into when I got to meet with you. So it'll just be chronological order. But I'm hoping to get a couple of them knocked out this week. This weekend will be tough because I'm actually on the tour with the Arcanum bus tour that they're doing. So I'll be in Philadelphia, New York, and D.C. this weekend. So I will not be in House Lark. You guys have a 3-day weekend. Don't trash the place while I'm gone.
Oh, come on. Let's have some fun.
Okay. Well, I take that back. Have a blast. Destroy the place. Paul just volunteered for cleanup crew.
I've just volunteered for cleanup. I'm sorry I'm away on the next 3 days next week. How did I guess that was coming?
What else? What are you guys up to? What are you doing? What are you struggling with? It doesn't have to be Arcanum related either.
Well, I have something else.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's so basic. I feel okay. So I'm putting together my wish list for camera gear.
Okay.
And I've narrowed it down between a Canon Mark III and a Sony A7S. And I guess, I don't know your thoughts, and then I'm clueless on the lenses yet. I haven't started doing any research on lenses, and I don't even know what fits what. And if I want to do landscape and portrait, what do I need? Where would you start?
What are you shooting on right now? What's your current body?
It's a Rebel XSI.
I think I'm a Canon girl, so I can comment on the Canons. I've heard really good things about the Sony, like really good things, and I'm pretty sure Trey has one too, and he loves it. Do any of you shoot Sony?
I've got a 5D3, and I just sold my Sony A7. And the only reason I sold the Sony was lens selection.
Okay.
They just didn't have it there. But that being said, if the amount of glass, or the range of glass comes along farther, I would consider going back to the A7R2. It's got comparable stats to what the 5D3 gives me now. Plus, it's got the higher megapixels, plus a couple of the features that are built into it that may or may not be useful to you depending on the kind of photography you're doing. But it really comes down to what you want to shoot and how much you want to invest in it, and weight. I mean, let's face it, glass is heavy, so are camera bodies, and the Sony system is a lot lighter. I originally got it as a walk-around camera and found that it sat there gathering dust because it didn't have the lenses. My two cents. Paul actually just did a really good online interview kind of that related to some of that stuff.
Yeah, I spoke to Martin Bailey. He's just bought the Canon 5 DSR, which is quite an expensive bit of kit. But that said and done, he spoke volumes about it. I've heard both sides of the story with regards to Sony, some good, some bad. But one of the things that really comes out quite often, and Karen Hutton mentioned this when I spoke to her about the lens stable of the Sony setup, is not quite there yet. Also, I think a lot of guys are buying mirrorless cameras and using adapters with their existing lenses that they've got. That to me just doesn't add up. You've got to take some Canon lenses, which are geared really for either the crop cameras or the full frame. They're quite hefty lenses. Put that onto a lightweight body like a Sony, I think will tend to cause a little bit of a balanced situation when using it. I can't see the benefit of having a full frame camera like a Sony with an adapter so that you can use your Canon lenses. I'm a Fuji user, mainly because of my style of photography. I don't need full frame. I either use I'm basically a street photographer, or I'm tending to do quite a lot of architecture type work at the moment, so I don't really need a full frame camera. The lens stable with the Fuji is very, very good, and they're quality lenses, and it is a lightweight setup. But it is horses for courses. I think even sometimes you could say, is there a requirement really to be full frame if you're going to go into publication? I don't think there is a requirement anymore. A lot of your images, if you get the program resize, you can make your images big enough to go into any publication or to hang on any wall. So I don't think really the crop sensor really is a major issue anymore. Suffice to say, though, a full-frame sensor will operate better in low-light conditions. Counter that with the Fujis. I operate sometimes my Fuji at 6400 ISO, and I don't have a major problem at all. It really is horses for courses. I think if you're a Canon user, I would stick with Canon because it's the devil you know. You'll be used to the menus. You'll be used to the way the camera is set up itself. You'll be used to the custom menus that you can do. 5D Mark III is an extremely good camera. I think we could list endless photographers that are using the Canon 5D Mark III. It's an old camera, but it's still doing good work for everyone that I know. But if you've got $3,000, $4,000 to spend on a body, by all accounts, this 5DSR is just smacking it out of the ballpark, as you guys would say, on the other side of the pond.
Why did you choose Fuji? Because I just saw Morgan Fuji. So
Yeah.
why did you choose that one?
I am going to say unapologetically, it is Dave Hobby and what's the guy's name? Zach Arias' fault that I chose Fuji. I just like the Fuji X100S. I chose the XE1 to start off with because it gave me the interchangeability. It's like a rangefinder style camera. 1.5 crop was basically what I was using with my Nikon gear. I was totally Nikon, Nikon D50, D200, which was a 1.5 crop camera as well. I was fed up with the heavy weight of the bag. My normal bag load would be a low pro bag with the D50, the D200, 3 lenses, plus my Nikon 1 series with 3 lenses as well, and probably sometimes the stuff in a film camera. I just got fed up carrying so much gear. So I switched out, bought the Fuji XE1 with an 1855, and quite honest with you, for nearly 2 years that sufficed. That's all I needed. I then got smitten with the X100S, which I just added, which is here, and this really is my go-to camera now. Quite honest with you, when I go out walking about, street walking, which is a fantastic camera. Fuji X100T has just come out, with about 6 months old. That's even better than the S, faster focusing. And I've just bought the XT10, which is the XT1 baby brother. It does everything the same as the XT1. The only thing that the XT10 hasn't got, but the XT1 has, is weatherproofing. So those are my 2 cameras. Still got the XE1. I'm going to send that off for a filter adjustment for infrared photography. So that'll be that. And I just got the 1855 with a 35mm. That is my gear. But it's my type of photography that I do. I would stress, if you're into portraiture, Jessica will obviously advise you with regards to other lenses which may suit you for that type of work. For the type of work that I do, or my interest, not my work, I don't do that just yet, but for my hobby, the 35mm 1.4 and the 1855 just suits me down to the ground. Plus I've got a 23mm on the X100S.
There's a lot to be said, and Steve hit on a good point in the chat and said the bottom line is that it's the eye of the artist that makes the image. The equipment is just the supporting cast. Take that with a grain of salt, though, because that's true. You know, anyone can acquire the equipment with enough dedication. The eye is much harder to teach. It's not impossible, but it's much harder to teach. As far as equipment, I made the jump when I first started. I bought the 40D, and then I jumped up from the 40D to the 5.2. I didn't go to the 5.3 because I didn't see enough of a difference between the 5D2 and the 5D3 to mark it being worth the investment of the cost, taking into consideration the depreciation value that I would get on the D2. However, if I was going from Rebel and was making the commitment, and that was about as high as I'd be willing to go, I would go with the 5D3. Now, that said, I have that new shining Canon on my wish list as well, and now I'm going to have to go watch because I didn't realize that Martin was reviewing it, because I've been waiting for somebody that had their hands on it to really give a good back and forth.
It's a very good show to watch, actually, Jessica, just to pump that for a bit. He, in actual fact, goes onto his Lightroom, and he takes the images of the snow monkeys. There's no snow around, by the way. but it goes right in on the snow monkeys, and you can count the eyelashes. It is truly, and I'm not a Canon fan, I would hasten to add, it is truly a remarkable camera. Unbelievable. Yeah. He even mentioned, in actual fact, one very good point here that he did mention. I don't want to bore people too much with this, but he did mention that he noticed there was almost like a downgrading of his lenses when he switched from the 5D Mark III to the 1DX. He noticed that the increase in the pixel count on the sensor meant he wasn't getting such a sharp image when he used his 7200. I don't know which make it was, but he's noticed since he used the 7200 with his new 5DSR, the images have improved immensely. He said, I don't know what they've done in the camera, but they've done something. So it's all good to hear what these cameras are improving as they go on. It's a question of what your budget is, and of course, at the end of the day, what you shoot.
Yeah, it's both. So as far as portraiture goes and landscape and all of that, and did you see my floating table image for the reliquarian, the big, so it's people, but it's people in this giant landscape with these floating tables. If I had to pick 3 lenses for everyone to have that would cover the bases, I really love my 85. I use that one a lot when I'm in the studio doing portraiture. I think that's a really beautiful portrait lens. I really like the 70-200. I use that one outside all the time, and that's what the table one was shot on. I just think that one's a really beautiful lens too. And you know, I like having the big. Sometimes size does matter. We have to come to terms with this and admit it. But I feel powerful when I have that lens. But it's heavy. It's a really heavy lens, especially if you're hand holding. So it took me a while. And I bought it when I was still fairly new. That was one that I invested in before Sigma sponsored me. And it took me a while. I thought that I didn't like the lens, but it was actually just that it was so heavy that I couldn't handhold still like I could when I was on like my 50 and the 24-70, and like because they're smaller lenses, it's so much heavier that while I was shooting, if I was shooting at slower shutter speeds, I would have a little bit of this, like almost imperceivable, but just enough that I was getting like just a little bit of motion blur. So a monopod's a good thing to invest in if you're going to go out and shoot with that a lot. So the 85, the 70-200, and I also really like my 24-70. All my lenses are Sigma because they sponsor me now, but I had 2 or 3 Canon lenses that I'd bought early in my career, and Sigma sent me a collection, and some of those doubled over. So just on a personal level, I went and shot the same thing with both of them and blew them up in Photoshop and Lightroom just to see side by side if I was seeing a lot of image quality difference, and I really wasn't. I know that Sigma does a couple of Sony lenses, but I don't think that they have the, you know, the library that they have for Nikon and Canon. So I can't, honestly, like, I like to pick on Nikon users, but it's Coke and Pepsi. Like, it really is just personal preference. I'm a Canon girl because I went in on Wednesday and the Canon guy was in the store. If I'd gone in on Thursday, I'd have bought a Nikon. So I do agree with Paul that if you're familiar with the interface and you're already invested in Canon, that Canon's probably the way to go. I'm totally fine with you not necessarily investing in Canon lenses. I think Sigma will suit you fine, and I would tell you that even if they weren't sponsoring me. Like, I won't invest the extra money to have the brand name, and for me, there wasn't enough of a quality difference in the image output to justify the cost investment. So I do think that you're buying the label a little bit.
I just picked up my first Sigma lens that ever. All my glass has been Canon to date, and I picked up the 150-600, and I just can't get over the quality of this lens. Even with a doubler on it, taking it to 1200 millimeters, even then I'm getting acceptable images. Not super sharp, of course. You're gonna lose with the doubler, but the quality of this lens is. I can't say enough about it. It really kind of made me want to go back and relook at Sigma instead of sticking just with Sony glass.
And Sigma lenses are affordable as well. That's another point to mention. Jessica, I just want to mention Steve Parsons made a very good point here. Basically, rent the equipment first before you make the dive, Alexandra. Sorry. So if you've got a local store that will rent you some equipment first, go out and hire out the Canon 5D Mark III and see how you get on with it. Is it a camera which you're going to basically feel comfortable with after you've used it? Don't think when you're there, oh, you're going to work it straight away. You won't. They're just beasts. But, you know, certainly rent before you buy is a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah, borrow lenses, and
yeah.
There's another company that does it too pretty
regularly. I can't remember the other one. Borrow lenses always comes to mind because the guys on Twitter always mention it, but I don't know the other one in the States.
Well, and it's a really good marketing name.
Well,
who do I call if I want to borrow lenses? What is their name? Oh yeah, Borrow Lenses. So from them. But yeah, you can rent them for a weekend for like I think it's like $40-50 to have it for like a good. And here's the thing: you always rent it on a weekend because if you rent it on the weekend, you actually get an extra day. They don't want it back until Monday because of the mail. So you get an extra day for free.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm all about it. You know,
that's a great idea.
To Steve's comment of it being the artist and not the equipment, there's a lot of truth to that because I can take really good photos with my iPhone. And, you know, and you guys I've seen some of you guys doing that in the 30-day challenge because it's on the day and you don't always have your camera, so you're just looking for it. That said, the Mona Lisa might not have quite the potency that it has right now if it was done in Crayola crayon. And I'm telling you, honey, coming from a low lens and making a jump like that, because I did the same thing. I didn't go up like in tiers. I went right from the low grade to the 5D2, and the image quality difference just blew me away. So I think you're really, like, once you get your hands on it, you're going to be like, it's really, really fun. And the thing was that I bought the new one and was like, oh, I'll use the 40D as my backup camera. I was still doing weddings then, but the low light was incredible. And when I got home and I had shot on both, even the good images, I didn't want to put them in the final collection for the bride and groom because the quality difference from the camera and the sensors and the low light, taking nothing else into consideration because it was shot by the same artist. Once you master the artistry, then the equipment starts to become important. The problem is that people get in and they're like, oh, I'm going to be a photographer now. Let me go spend tens of thousands of dollars and have the best equipment. But if you don't know how to use it properly, you're not going to create the images. You know, but it will accentuate and amplify the quality of them, I think. So, was any of that helpful? Does that at least give you an idea?
Really, really helpful.
Okay.
Really helpful. I'm going to go see where I can rent the camera, try a few. Now I know the lenses to get, and hopefully I'll, get a camera soon. So.
Okay. Sounds good. What else, guys? Are we pretty good? You guys just hanging out? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, I was agreeing with what you said. I was just saying.
So, listen, Paul, I know that that you want to talk Path of the Protege and that's a road that you want to go down. And I was kind of questioning that, and I wanted to hang out with you a little bit and see you in a couple of levels and see if I thought that you were master material. But after listening to you just give that dissertation on cameras, I'm pretty much sold. So,
thank you.
Welcome to the Path of the Protege. That said,
thank you.
I'm also doubling your tuition because I think now I'm going to have to sign off and go buy that new Canon, and I'm blaming you for it. So I'm going to need you to help finance that.
Tough luck. I'll sign the agreement.
Yeah. So Path of the Protege. Let's chat about that a little bit and what your thoughts and your questions are and what did you want to know?
Well, when we originally spoke about this, I know the different levels which are going to come in, and I've seen some people ask for people to join, offer their images for critique, but there's obviously more to it than that. But I'm not worried about those levels to come. Basically, I just want to know how I get started. Obviously, as we know, we discussed before, I haven't got a Sphere 1 Master because she left the Canon. So I'm assuming I need a sponsor to start off with.
So
that's you, I take it now.
Yeah. So in order to get into the Path of the Protege, your housemaster, whoever you're currently studying under as an apprentice, has to write a letter of recommendation, which usually goes to me. We're going to skip that step because that would be redundant for me to write myself a letter about it. But basically, once I get those letters, that's your first letter of recommendation to get you in, and that gets you through the doorway. You can start the path of the protege at any one level, so 1, 11, 21, 31, so forth. We like them to coincide parallel alongside the sphere that you're studying in, so that your housemaster can help you with the path, and you have a full cohort that you can work with, because you can't complete all the steps if you're not in an active cohort. So basically what happens next is you'll get an invite to join the Path of the Protege community. And then it works very much like it does being an apprentice. There's 10, they call them stones. They're stepping stones. But essentially they're 10 levels. So, you know, the first stone will have these assignments, the second stone, the third stone, the fourth stone kind of thing. The first 4 stones are really you being in the community here and being helpful. You have an advantage on that because you not only have Sphere 2 and the apprentices in there, but you have convergence. So what we can do is we can send you invites into the 0 to 20 communities, and you can also help out down there, and you can use those people for your critiques, which is probably a more accurate feeling because you'll be working with those levels to begin with. Aside from the critiques and the tutorials, I'm really just looking to see, when I'm looking for potential apprentices in my cohort and people that want to teach, I'm looking to see that they're teaching without getting paid for it. Because some of us, it's just in our nature. It's the same way with artistry. Most of you, you know, love the idea of making income from this, but if you knew point blank that you were never going to make $1, you would still pick up your cameras because you can't not do it. It's just in you. It's part of who you are. I believe that very much about teaching too. So I'm looking for the people that are going above and beyond, the people that are, you know, sharing extra links and finding sources and helping out and having these kind of conversations like you just had with Alexandra, like that aren't as a result of me starting the conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
You also have an advantage because you and I were talking before when you were in, before I even knew that you were in the Arcanum and Inactive cohort, we were talking about, you know, your show that you do on Mondays, Tuesdays?
Thursdays.
Thursdays,
yeah.
So, and you've done how many episodes of it now?
Just on 60th was last week.
Yeah, so obviously not only do you have the ability to do it, just listening to you talk, you're very well spoken, you're very well informed, and most importantly, you have consistency and you have the ability to stick with it, because everybody gets in this honeymoon phase, apprentices and masters alike. Like we get in and we're like, ooh, shiny new cohort, and ooh, who are you? Let's be best friends. And then like after a couple of weeks, regular life sets in and it kind of dies down and people get in and out. So looking for that consistency after the honeymoon phase is key. I'm looking for stamina.
Yeah.
So that's definitely part of what the first 4 stones are about, is those kind of things. So you'll get in and you'll get to see those, and then it's you have to create 3 tutorials for the library that demonstrate your ability to teach. And then you have to do a Meet the Master video so that when you're inviting apprentices, you can send them a link and it'll say, hey, here I am and this is what I do and this is what my cohort's about. And, you know, you guys have access to the library, so it's a good idea to go into the Grand Library and just search Meet the Master videos and check out what some of the other people are doing. This is one of those occasions where you don't go look up mine, you do as I say and not as I do. And then,
where have I heard that before?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you go in, you have to put a letter of intention saying, I'd like to be a master, this is my qualifications, this is what I think would make me a good master, this is what I'm looking for, and you have to find 2 additional masters to sponsor you. Those 3 people make up your vanguard. It's me and 2 others. Because I'm your housemaster, you have to find somebody else to act as your housemaster. So it can be, who'd you have, Jim, for He took over
Well,
for...
I was as a street photographer, I was thinking of James Mayer.
Okay.
And the other person was Les Ingram. I haven't mentioned anything to them as yet. They may say no. Does that mean I've got to get another to make the three?
No.
You make the three up. Okay.
I just, for the sake of fairness, I can't act as your housemaster and as
I understand. Yeah.
head.
I understand.
So everybody has 3. But no, those would be your 3. So when you go into the Path of the Protege community, you'll write a letter of intention for wanting to be a master, and you'll ask for the Vanguard. You can just plus them and ask them if they'll pick you up. Them saying yes or no is not only dependent on their belief that you'll be a good master, but also has to do with how many other proteges they're currently sponsoring, because you can only sponsor, I believe it's 4 at one time. So until one of them graduates, they might not be able to pick you up.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it, and once we actually get you into the community, then you'll be able to see a lot more of what's going on, and you can talk to a whole bunch of the other proteges, and they'll help and kind of guide you on the path.
Yeah, no, that's a good starter. Thanks very much, Nate, for that. That's fine. I can certainly get started on those levels that you mentioned there once I get the invitation through.
Excellent. So remind me later tonight or tomorrow, just drop me a Hangout message, just drop me a chat and be like, hey, put me in the community. Because I did the research with you when we were trying to figure out who you were with before. But I definitely think that you have the potential and you're what they're looking for. And really, it's not just about having the knowledge and the talent. It's about being able to convey that in a way that people can take that information and process it and then put it into use. And I've met some incredible, incredible artists that I just could never learn from, just because they can't break it down and they can't remember what it was like to not know all of that information.
Yeah.
So it's hard for them to go down to the foundation level, and I think you'll be good at that.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks for that. That's answered a lot of questions there.
Okay. Anything else? How are you guys feeling? Most of you are new. Chital and Alexandra are the only ones that have been here a while. Are you guys sick of me yet?
No, I find actually these cohorts are a lot more engaged than the one I came from. The one I came from was very technical based. Don's a very scientific photographer.
Yeah, no worries about that here.
No. So, I mean, depending on, because there are some real characters in his cohorts. A couple of the alumni who graduated just ahead of me, I was the third out of his cohort to move on, had that level of engagement, but there's others in there that are a lot quieter. So I'm quite enjoying a lot of the interaction. I like the fact that it's not all photography based, that there's joking that goes on and things like that. I quite like that as well.
People are joking in here? Who are they?
Occasionally. I am not going to give up names. So I quite like it, actually. It's it's nice. Some of the people that are in here I've followed for a while, so it's nice to get to interact with them more directly, and it's nice to see the range of photographers that there are and all the different genres that they work in. Like I was watching.
Hear that, Peter? Wait. Say that again. It's nice to what?
To see the range of photographers and the variety of genres.
That makes me so happy.
It's not just about fashion. So, which actually, when I saw the initial note that you'd sent asking if I had an interest in the business of photography and stuff like that, I had actually looked at or watched a couple of your critiques, and I did use one in one of my levels and foundations. I think we had to watch 3 critiques. And I picked yours on purpose because it's not the type of photography that I typically tend to do. I have done some portrait work. I'm not going to show you for various reasons, but I thought it gave a very good contrast in understanding what other photographers look for that I could then take away from my own photography for the work that I was doing, and then to turn around and feed back in. One thing that Don does in some of his Hangouts, he has them every Friday night, is he'll do a roundtable critique. And you put an image up and everybody gets one kick at it to do various things. And it's interesting to see there are some that will conform to specifics, like mind your edges. And then there'll be people that get more creative and are looking at it as an image as a whole and less the technical side of it. And I think that I get more of, I guess I get more out of that side of it from what I'm seeing in this environment. Artistry is a big part of it. Doesn't mean that technical excellence isn't encouraged or talked about, but it's not a technical focus. It's more on the image itself and what it's trying to convey, its emotions, the passions behind it, things like that. And that's something that I really find I'm liking about this environment. Paul had asked about the path of the protege, and I thought part of the reason I wanted to pop in here because Dawn had offered to sponsor me before I finished my Sphere, Sphere 1. And I didn't want to start it yet because I hadn't figured out where my next direction was going to be. I didn't want to be just one guy picking things out and saying, okay, show me your images, I'm just going to critique them. That's not enough for me. One of the things that I didn't see in Dawn's cohort, and this isn't a slam against Dawn or anybody in there at all, was teaching the various aspects of photography. Like we never had hangouts that talked about the different types of composition, the rules, when to break the rules, which I think is more important, how to develop that eye that you were talking about. Like some people are fortunate they just see things. Some of that can be learned, but it's encouraging that side of photography and bringing people along. I have a number of people that I currently teach one-on-one now. And one woman started with, I've got this great camera. Typical, went out and bought a big camera, a bunch of lenses, and left it. Her motto was green is good. A little green thing around full auto. So now I've got her shooting manuals. She's using different lenses. She actually took one of the lenses back that she went and bought because it didn't suit her style and what she was looking for. So these are the kinds of things I'm seeing in here. I think Alexandra, I actually owe her a little bit of a write-up, was looking for a way of burning a wedding dress. And I think that is I think it's a cool idea. I shudder at the cost of burning the dress, but there's a place where you're bringing that artistry along. There's a technical side to it, shooting fire in the middle of the daytime. I actually have an iPhone shot for you, Alexandra, that I'll put up. But that's the kind of fun stuff. Is okay, here's something I want to be able to do. How can I do this? And letting my brain kind of cycle around and twist, and all of a sudden things pop up. I was like, hey, why don't we try it this way, and come up with it. I did a 365 a couple of years ago, and that was kind of some of the stuff that I threw into it. Quirky images like my levitation image, things like that. Just because I looked at it, I thought, how can I do that? Either with the camera or in Photoshop, a combination thereof. And that's where I get the enjoyment out of passing information along and bringing people along and seeing somebody take one of my tricks or tips that I've used and say, hey, look what I did, and I can recognize that they've kind of embraced it and then better yet turned it into their own. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of thing that I like. So I'm quite enjoying the amount of interaction that the two cohorts have here.
Well, and I think it's both, and you hit the nail on the head when you said because I'm paying praise to one does not mean that I'm insulting the other, because I can guarantee you that someone that comes from my cohort and ends up in Don's will be like, I'm so glad you actually talk about any of the technical or the equipment kind of stuff, because I don't think J-Lark mentioned the camera once the whole time. Because it's always very abstract for me, because I think like an artist. It took me, I'm always an artist. I've never called myself a photographer. I think that lighting came really naturally to me because I took 4 years of, like figure painting. Like I got accepted early decision at 15 to Moore College down in Philadelphia, and was in with a bunch of college students doing nude figure paintings. So you think capturing the light on someone is hard, try doing it with paint. So I think that it was a little more intuitive for me to understand how to get that sort of sculpted look I was after, because I'd been doing it with a paintbrush. But I'm definitely, like, some people are in a certain medium and that's it, and that's their form of expression. If you take away my camera, I'll pick up brushes, I'll pick up pencils, I will pick up a stick and draw in the mud, or I'll write, or I'll do video. Like, I just have something to say. Sometimes I don't know what it is, but I, like most women, like, I'll just keep talking until I figure out my point. And, so that's important So it's the kind of thing where I think that's the benefit of studying under multiple masters in the Arcanum, because we are so diverse in what we're doing and what we're accomplishing and how we're going about teaching those lessons, even when we do have the same point that we're trying to get to. And that's very much part of who I am as an artist and a teacher. I don't care. Like, I really don't. I don't care if you shoot natural light or if you shoot studios. I don't care if you're on an iPhone or a Hasselblad or anywhere in between. I don't care if you get it right in camera or if you get it right in Photoshop, as long as when you share that image and say, here is my art, here is what I have to say, it moves me. If I have an emotional connection and reaction to it, it's a successful image. And this gets into a little bit of the 30-day challenge, and we've been going back and forth in the community on that. And Alexandra and I were having words about it, along with pit photography with that couple, because she's like, well, why are you picking the ones you're picking? And I'm like, because I like them. And she's like, you can't do. They're like arguing with me. They're like, you can't say that. That's like a parent saying, because I told you so. That's not a real reason. But at the same time, it is. Like, that's where we start to get into the mentality and the emotional side of sales. And what sells is that they don't critique your work. Your potential clients and your customers, the people that buy art, maybe we do because we're photographers, so if we buy something photography related, we look at it and we dissect and we go, oh my God, I love that lighting and stuff. But normal people don't think like that. They go, oh, I really like that. And that's it. That's where it stops for them. I just love this image. And most of the time it's because they don't know why. I have my clients do that a lot when they come in for sessions. I'll tell them to go make a Pinterest board, and they'll select 50, 60 images, and 45 of them will be backlit in these really nice silhouette shots. They don't look at it and go, I like it when it's backlit so that you're getting the rim light and the silhouette. They just go, that looks really sexy, because of the tonality of the muscles and things like that. So I notice things as a photographer that they don't notice as the potential client. And I think that, and I don't know if this is widespread or not, but it makes me crazy in the same way you were gritting your teeth, Alexandra, like, well, I just need more. I do that all the time when I post images on social media, because I spent 3 months building this set for the table shoot for Higher Learning. It was an incredible amount of work. It was the most money I ever spent on a photo shoot. It was culinary artists and contractors and antique dealers and all of these people I pulled in. I had 23 people on set that day to help set everything up and get these people on these tables 9 feet in the air. The dresses were custom designed. I helped make them. I sat for 3 days and burned the edges of fabric flowers to make them ripple so that they would look right on her dress. It was incredible. The next day, after posting the image, I went like this. 238 likes on the cell phone selfie, 47 likes on the 3-month photo project with the elaborate tables set up. What the f? And so, like, I stopped and I thought about it, and I was like, how, why? But I don't, and the part of me that's a girl is like, well, I guess I'm hot. Well, that's a good thing. But the photographer part of me just wanted to crawl in a hole and cry. I was like, I'm wasting my time, and I have no talent, and I have no right to teach people because I can't even figure out how to get more likes than a cell phone selfie, and it doesn't matter. And the only reason that I'm popular is because I'm boudoir and I shoot boobs, and that, I was just this big, epic, failure. But it's an interesting study into the psychology of it. So we can take a step back and go, okay, well, hot girls and cleavage will always get more likes from the general public than fine art, right? Well, if we go back and just limit it to the project, taking that further, the one photograph on this project that has the most likes, comments, and shares is, again, a cell phone photo that I posted to Instagram with the filters of the butterfly book that I made, not any of the actual completed art shots. So this butterfly book is just a prop. It's my banner photo right now, I think, on my Facebook page. And it's cool. It's a really nifty prop. I like it. But again, same thing. I just took an iPhone photo. It's not particularly well lit. It's grainy. It's, you know, got the banding. It's low quality. But I took a picture of it because we spent 3 days creating it, and it was really neat. It's got like 200 and some likes and comments and, you know, like 35 shares, more than any of the completed pieces that I have killed myself creating. Why is that? And so I feel your pain. I'm laughing at you guys when you're picking and going, why are you picking this one? Because I can see you like sitting there like gripping your hair going, that's it, I quit, I'm out. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But you start to see these changes in what people like and what they respond to. Because that's it, right? If I have 500 people share that image, I'm going to have a lot more people starting to like the page and follow the project, which means I have a bigger pool of people that are potentially buying prints, which means I have more income coming in that I'm making money from. So this is absolutely business related. But you have to start to understand why it is that certain things start to react more with people. So again, going back to this shoot and this epic thing, I have more pins on Facebook from the shared images of the cakes and the candlesticks and the little mossy things than I do the epic shot. Is it because the big full shot isn't good? No. But why do people pin things and why do people share things? Well, I started looking at the boards that they were on. 35 of them shared it to a board that was wedding inspirations. Oh. Other people were sharing the dresses because they loved the cake shoes for fashion, and because almost every girl I know on Pinterest has a shoe board of just completely insensible things that will break our necks in but will do for the sake of our feet looking cute. You know, so then you start to look and you start to understand that when things resonate with people and when people start really feeling a connection, it's because this is something personal. Is it because that's a good wedding image? Maybe. But what did I do? I tapped into them in their 5-year-old selves going, someday I'm going to get married and I'm going to have a big princess wedding and I want it to be very fairy tale-like and I really love all these elements and my favorite color is purple, so of course all the purple icing. Notes. It has now become about nothing involving my photograph, my project, or anything I put my work into. It has become part of their 5-year-old dream of what their wedding was going to be like. It's an emotional connection all the way through. So it's the same thing, and I said that after you started, the image that Danielle posted with the brushes and the sunlight coming through, that is nirvana for me. A day off with no children and a nice sunny day where I can just dip my brushes into the varnish and start painting is like, like, you know, choirs of angels. So I had an emotional reaction to that shot, and that's difficult for me to stop and look at and go, do I like this for its artistic merit and its photography proficiency, or do I like this from an emotional standpoint? Can we ever be objective about it? You know, and we were talking about, you know, the concept about being kind of pushy and whether or not Pitt was coming off as, what did he say, brash or arrogant? Or he's just being assertive. And I went, yeah, you are kind of brash and arrogant. And Alexandra went, oh, I didn't think so at all. I felt loved and supported. I was like, well, yeah, because he's on your side. So where's the truth in that? Is he an arrogant asshole, or is he just really confident and really excited and assertive and moving forward? And the answer is yes. You know, because there's a really good statement, and it shows a cylinder. And if you shine a light on a cylinder from here, it appears like a square because it's facing this way. But if you shine the light this way, it's a circle that gets cast on the wall. This is true. It's a circle. This is true. It's a rectangle. But the truth is that it's actually a cylinder. So it can be both because everything is perspective and everything is conversation and the way that you look at it. So when you're creating art, are you creating it for you? Are you really creating it for you? Because a lot of us feel really taken down a notch if we're like, oh my God, this is the best image I've ever created, and then we post it and we get crickets. And we're like, nobody likes it. And we pour so much of ourselves into it that then we're pouring, bottles of scotch because we're like, nobody likes my artwork. I'm all washed up at 30. I was never going to make it anyway. So it's interesting to pay attention to, and I let them, I was waiting for someone to kind of comment and be like, are you going to actually tell us why you're picking certain ones? And I can look at it and say that depending on the criteria that we put it at, that different people would have won. If I said I was looking for the best lit images, which we might do that, I might pick 30 more things, and really we could go through with the same categories, but say, give me your best lighting images in this. And would you pick a different image then? Would you pick a different one for composition? Would you pick a different one for, rule of thirds, like if we were getting into the really nitty-gritty and the basics of what's going on? And how much of it is actually just subjective, where somebody looks at it and goes, I like it because I like it. Is that enough? Do we need more? Because understanding why someone likes it is the key to them writing checks. It really, really is. But you have to be able to understand why they like it without them telling you. And that's where it gets really difficult. Is that ringing with anyone?
Absolutely. I spend a lot of time looking at, or have spent a lot of time looking at pictures on 500px, Google+, stuff like that. And I'll look at them and try and figure if an image grabs my attention, I like it. What is it about I like it? What is it about that image, I mean? And then I look at other images that are getting thousands of pluses and things like that and try and figure out, okay, so what's appealing in this image to various people? So sometimes I look at the image and I really don't like it, but hundreds of people do. So it's kind of interesting to see. And I've been surprised. I put images up that, I remember there was one that I put up that I thought was a mediocre image, but it was my image for the day. And it got one of the biggest responses I'd had when I asked, like, why do you like this? I like the colors, and I like the fact that there's little cows in the background, and most of the things that I looked at and kind of discounted as being, strengths to an image, or turned out to be strengths to the people who were looking at it. I was looking at it from a too technical standpoint. So you're right, it is one of those things you have to be able to take a step back and understand how it's going to resonate with somebody and take yourself out of the middle of it, because you have a tendency to potentially overthink things.
Yeah. Do you guys find that? Like, do you share images and you're like, oh my god, this is the best image I've ever made, and then you get like, and then you'll share one that you're like, it's good enough, so I haven't shared anything in a while, and people just go nuts over it? How frustrating is that?
It happened with me a couple of weeks ago, actually, when I was re-editing an image of the Eiffel Tower. And I literally was just mucking about with the sliders in Lightroom and just trying to get a toned effect on it. Posted it up. I was quite pleased with it. Posted it up. It's gone ballistic. It's not my interest at the moment, which is street photography, but it's just like a cityscape, really. And it's just got me interested into doing more that way. I wanted to ask a question, though, on the back of what you just said, Jessica. Do you take photographs for your own personal enjoyment, or do you take photographs for the response?
It's I think it has to be both.
Sorry to interrupt. You've got to be careful. I put this because you're on your professional aspect. You're obviously taking a photograph for that commission. I take it from a situation of your general photography.
Well, that was the thing. For a while, I did nothing for me. I had no personal projects, and that was a lot of why I moved away from weddings, because I knew that I felt more creative in boudoir than I did in weddings, and that was what I got all my notoriety from. I'm a decent wedding photographer. I'm a really good boudoir photographer. Everyone has told me this. They're like, yeah, you're okay. But I think it's just okay because I understand photography well enough to be okay. And with the influx of digital, there's so many people that are bad, or I don't want to, well, no, they're bad. But most of that is because they're new and they just don't have the experience. They'll get better as it goes, the same way that I did. But at the same time, you can't not take into consideration the audience if you want to make money. This is where a lot of people are like, oh, you sell out for the cash, but you do. And my clients trust me, so they give me a lot of freedom with creation of the images, but even still, I had these epic ideas in my head, so it really came down to it. And now with the Reliquarian, I am less and less inclined to work with paying clients where I have to consider a collaborative vision, because I don't want to be a business. I want to be an artist. I want to be able to say, I created this because I had something to say. The Reliquarian is very much that for me, and in a negative turn of events, you know, I gave up weddings and picked up the Arcanum because I love teaching. I really, really do. And I like the community. It's not even the teaching as much, because I don't really feel like I teach that many things. Like, I don't come with that much information and go, here it is, take all of this knowledge and impart. It's more, I think, less than giving the answers. I just encourage people to ask the questions and go find the answers.
I would say from some of the critics that I've seen you give, Martin Higgs in particular, I don't think you give answers. I think you make questions, making them go away and think about what I've got to do in the future, and you're giving the question out. For instance, I remember you mentioning to Martin was in a sort of a situation as regards to what's his next stage, what does he develop next. You were talking about his Photoshop skills, etc., etc. I remember it quite distinctly, actually. But I do remember one comment you made, said, get your ass over to New York and you'll be doing really well as a portrait photographer over here, or a lifestyle, or a stylist photographer, I think was the description. And I think that really made Martin stop and think, because I don't think anyone had actually ever said that to him straight. No, he probably had a critique on his image. The lighting was this, the lighting was that, the makeup was this, the position of the camera, blah, 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 all that business. But for him, in actual fact, to get a straight statement from you, in other words, you were asking him the question. I remember you asked him how much he charges. And I think he said he struggles to make £250 per session. And you said, you should be charging £2,000. You're asking the question. Why don't you go and do that? And for all I know, I spoke to Martin a couple of weeks ago, actually. I think, in actual fact, has effectively turned that corner and is now going that route. He's confident to offer and ask for that price for work that he's doing, whereas before he was tentative and held back. And I think that happens a lot with hobbyist photographers that want to make it as a professional.
And
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I want to see. But, you know, really, I can't take credit for any of that. You know, aside from, and at best, all I'm doing is showing where the fertile ground is.
Exactly.
And that's what I mean when I say, like, teachers are GPS. They're maps. They give you the answers to the questions so that you can understand them and learn them and implement them. When you get into mentoring, we're not a map. We're a compass. We point north and you plot your course. So every bit of achievement that you guys are going to incur over the next couple of levels is going to be because of your work. The same way that you can hire a physical trainer to teach you how to properly do the exercises and what reps and scream and holler at you or cheer you on, but you have to do the sit-ups yourselves. You cannot pay someone to do them for you, and you will not see growth or change unless you do that. So it's the kind of thing where, you know, I am one of the most beloved and hated equally masters in the Arcanum, because I really, really push and I do the hard things, and I'm not afraid for you guys to hate me. If you guys don't hate me at least once or twice in the next 30 levels, you know, I'm not doing my job. The same way that I hate my physical trainer every time I go to the gym, you know, and it's both. Some days you need them to go, you're making progress. You know, you dropped 10 pounds. You know, we see the growth. Look at how far you've come from level 4 to level 9, you know, and how much you've accomplished. Look at where you were compared to where you are. But at the same time, sometimes you need them to go, you need to stop making excuses, and either you're going to do it or you're not, and either way, that's a choice, you know. And a lot of people think that they want things, but they don't want them bad enough to work for them. And sometimes asking that question really helps people decide, is this what I really want? You know, like I got offered a really, really incredible opportunity as far as my photography career, which honestly has kind of been backburnered compared to my teaching and my mentoring because I put in so much time and energy here that I haven't been shooting as often. And I had an agent that I remember very specifically saying to Mike, someday I will work for this man. Someday this man will come to me and say, I want you to be one of our photographers, and this agency, all of their photographers are shooting the cover of Vogue and lifestyle and CD covers for celebrities, and that was where I wanted to be. And I got that conversation, you know, 5 years later. Like, I wrote him in 2010 and said, it is my birthday, and I would like a gift from you. And he's like, well, that's really outgoing of you. Who are you? And I said, look, I'm like, I've been following you and your agency. I really want to work for you. I'm new. I've only been at this 2 years. What do I have to do to get on your radar to be one of your pet photographers? And I was like, I would really appreciate it if you just give me 5 minutes of your time and give me some advice to point me in the right direction. And he wrote me back and told me, you know, everything that I needed, and I went and I did that. And then he dropped me a line 2 years later and said, I just want you to know I've been paying attention. And I like printed it out and hung it on my studio, like, I'm gonna get there, to the point that I'm worthy of competing with these incredible world-renowned photographers. And he dropped me a line and he said, look, he's like, you're good enough for me to pick up. He's like, but you're in the wrong place. You would have to move to New York City or to LA, because that's where I operate, and I can't have you where you are. So do you want this or not? Because if you do, I need to see a commitment level from you. And I stopped and I thought about it, and suddenly everything else came into play. And I went, you know what? If I was going to do this, I would have to quit the Arcanum. I could not divide my time and put the kind of hours in that I need to do. And I would have to close up my studio, and I would have to move my family, and I would have to have my kids in New York City, where the closest thing to outdoors they have is Central Park, you know, and here they have 2 acres. And do I really want that? And everything that comes with it, enough to give up all of this? And the answer was no. You know, and it's no problem for him. There's 5 million other photographers that would jump at the chance and that do want it bad enough because they don't have other things that I have that weren't sacrificing for it. But a lot of times people are like, I want, and when it comes time to do the work, they go, well, I don't really want it. You know, which is why you'll notice, like, I very rarely give freebies. Like, when Alexandra and Pip both jumped on me and were like, we want to know why you're picking the images, I went, okay, deal. As long as I see 3 comments on every image from you guys about what you like and don't like about it, I'll tell you why I picked the winner. Because if they're not willing to put in that work themselves, I don't have to. You can't ask for the world to give you more than you're willing to give it back. And it's a very small and insignificant lesson, but it really is how the world and the universe works. There is a lot of truth to the law of attraction, but there's this misunderstanding that the law of attraction is you attract what you want. You don't. You attract what you are and what you're doing. What you're putting out is what you get back. And that's just because of, you know, it's the frequency that you're vibrating at, and it attracts things of the same frequency. So it's this sort of gravitational thing that I'm finding with the world. You attract your tribe. You attract your people. So if you're an asshole, if everybody around you is an asshole, then you should really do some self-searching and go, am I a really good person right now? Why do I have all this awful stuff and awful people around me right now? Chances are, you know, you are who you hang with, you are what you eat, you know, you see that. So do I shoot for myself? I do more now, and the interesting thing is that the more that I shoot for myself, the less I want to shoot for other people. At the same time, I feel like I have something important to say. So if I'm speaking in a dialect nobody else understands, the message gets lost. So I do think that it's a balance between the two. But I don't think that I don't think I could do work that I wasn't impassioned by just for the sake of money. And I think I think that's where my purpose comes in as an artist and as a teacher, is that I think that your passion leads you to your purpose, which is where Sphere 2's name came in, because everybody is taught from such a young age to chase profit, that's where your value is, that your value as an adult human being comes in your ability to contribute to society as a functioning adult, to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, to pay your taxes. And we judge those things based on material and monetary values. How big is your house? How big is your car? These are all indicators of success. But I know so many people that work good jobs and have good money, and they are miserable because they don't spend any of their time in their purpose and in their passion, and that just depletes them, you know? And this is it, you know? Maybe reincarnation happens. Maybe there's an afterlife. Maybe there's a different existence. Maybe we die and we find out that we've lived 900 other lives before this. But as far as we know, this is it. This is the only time that you have to be who you are in this life. So to waste your time for the sake of money on the bet that eventually you'll retire and be able to spend your time the way you want is just, that's a huge gamble that I'm not willing to take. You know, at this point, success for me is very, very simple. Yes, we need to make money. Yes, I need to provide for my family, but I do that. More importantly, I want to be able to say that I spent my time doing what I wanted to do and what I felt had greater meaning and the potential to exist beyond me. I think that's why I create and why I do what I do, is that I'm very, especially the last couple of weeks, I'm very aware of mortality and how fleeting it is. And most of us in here are at least a third, if not halfway through our lives, maybe more. So, and it's not guaranteed. Like, you could die tomorrow in a car accident. Are you happy with what your legacy is right now? Because I could honestly say that if something tragic happened and my life ended tomorrow and somebody asked me that, you know, at the Golden Gates, or my life was flashing before my eyes, I can look at it and go, I have 2 incredible children that I just love to pieces. I've been married to a soldier for 10 years and supported him in his career and given him a place to come home. I'm a published author with my book in 17 different countries. I've had 75 apprentices from 17 different countries around the world in every possible time zone, and I can see them opening studios, and I can see them beginning to teach and share their knowledge, and I can see them buying a new car, and I can see them telling their spouse that they don't have to work anymore because they're making enough money to provide for them, and being able to tell the person they love that they can go do what they want. Have I spent my time well? I think so. I think if you can't say that we need to adjust where you're at and see what we need to do to put you on that path to be able to do that. That's my purpose. Whatever I have to do and however I have to convey that, whether that's through teaching or art or writing or whatever, to get the message across that time is your most valuable currency, that's what I'm here to do. If you guys don't know what your message is or what your purpose is, then that's what we should be figuring out in whatever sphere you are right now. And the thing is that I think that you do. I think that everyone kind of knows inherently. We just got used to listening to these negative voices that say, that's not realistic, and you have to grow up, and you know, when are you going to get a real job, and you're going to be a starving artist, and, you know, you to be responsible, or that doesn't have any value. And we let that drown out that little voice that's always whispering when we go, what is it you're here for? Some part of you is giving the answer to that and has known that since the moment that you were born. We just get it beat out of us the older we get. Like, and it may change a little. Like right now, my son's sole purpose in life is to be a dinosaur. That's his high ambition right now. You know, and he walks around and he, you know, and like, so that's how it starts. And my daughter wants to be a princess, and so, you know, they hit like 5, 6 years old, and I had to explain to him that he's not actually reptilian. He's in the wrong species. Maybe next lifetime, if he asks nicely, he'll get to do that, and that maybe we should pick a different goal. So now, right now, he just walks around the house and dances like way too fabulously for any little boy his age. And you know, same thing. I had to tell my daughter, you know, we don't actually have a monarchy in the USA, and you're not from royal bloodlines, and chances aren't good that we're going to marry you off to a royal, so we might have to think of something beyond princess, you know? And then so they adopt something else, and they go, well, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be an actress. And then we go, well, we let them hold on to that for a little while, and then the same thing happens. Society starts telling them only 1 in a million can become the next Beyonce or the next, you know, George Clooney, or, you know, whoever it is. So your chances aren't good. So maybe we should pick something a little more obtainable and responsible, and you should get your head out of the clouds. And we totally diminish all of their faith in themselves at such a young age, and we totally change the course that they were naturally gravitating towards. I've been dealing with this with my one cousin. She is 11 years old, and she's the most talented artist I've ever seen. She blows everyone out of the water. If we put her in the Arcanum right now, everybody that's in hand-drawn art would want to study under her until they saw that she was 13 now. And, you know, and that's the thing. And her mom keeps arguing with her because there's sketchbooks everywhere. And I mean stacks of them from the floor up. She goes through like 2 of them a week, you know, and that's all she does with her time all day long. And she's so incredibly, incredibly good. She makes my work look like stick figures. And she's like, I told her she wasn't allowed to draw for a week because she didn't pass this test or because she's in school. And I agreed that there's an importance to education, but what do we go to school for? To learn the skills, to be able to go to college so we can major in something, so we can get a job doing what we want to do. She's found it at 10. Why are we not pushing this? Why don't you have her in an art school? Why aren't we embracing this gift more? And she sees it as a, don't do that, let's focus on this. And I feel like she's missing the point. You know, on the other hand, you know, there's other parents that'll look at me and be like, you need to put more emphasis on education. But I keep looking at it and going, I don't think it's education anymore. I think it's memorization. I think it's facts. I think it's, you will remember these things and we will score you on your ability to retain this information and redistribute it here, and that's your value. And I can't look at humanity as a race and say that that's all that we're meant to do, or that that determines who we are, you know? And there's a really, really famous quote by Albert Einstein that says, everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. So we standardize everyone and we tell everyone this is your value, and everybody gets lost along the way. And you know, when they pick it back up, when they retire, and all of a sudden there's no pressure on them to contribute and to work and to do this, and that's not there, then it's okay for them to go back to what they love. So we let them have it when they're too young to do anything with it, because they're not in charge of their own lives and they don't have the maturity and the mental ability to care for themselves. And then we take it away during all of the years that they have the most potential to maximize that gift and impact the world. And then we give it back to them on the ends of their life when, you know, they've spent most of their energy and all of their best physical years, and their knees hurt because of the weather, and their eyesight isn't as good, and, you know, and they're on their way out of it. And then we go, now you can do what you want. And I just think that that's really, really tragic. There's an fiction book I can't remember the name of, but in this society, everyone gets paid except for the people who work, because they don't want money to become a determining factor in how hard people work. So you don't get paid for your job. Only the unemployed get paid. The people that work because they love it and from a place of passion, but they don't get paid for their job. And I think it would be really interesting to see what would happen if we would do that and let everybody just be who they were meant to be. And I think that that's where the potential for art really comes in, because what do? We create art to say what we can't say. And it resonates with other people who didn't know that that's what they were trying to say. That's why it speaks. When we start talking about the whys and why people like an image and don't like another, that's it. It's right there. It's because you said something that was in me that I couldn't find the words for, and you put it there in an image, or you put it there, you know, in a book or in a dance or in a song or something, and it resonates on this deep level. Art has the biggest chance of any avenue that we have ever come across to unite the world. And the Dalai Lama just did a symposium on creativity and how that has the ability to affect consciousness and compassion, because it's universal. You know, you guys can go to any country in the world and take your images and people can be moved by them. And there's no language barrier, and there's no change in dialect or ability to understand. It's consciousness. That's what you guys are doing right now. So with that being the case, really, before we start talking about business or we start talking about art or we start talking about anything, the real question is, what is it that you want to say to the world? That's where I'm leaving it.
that resonates with a lot of people, I think. I was going to, while you were talking about it, I was thinking of Beatrix Potter, who wrote the Peter Rabbit stories. Her father was trying desperately to push her into another industry, and she said, no, I want to be a writer. Eventually she wrote the book On the Quiet, and it was published, and Millionaire S bought loads of parkland up in the middle part of the country. And funny enough, there's a young girl, friend of the family, and in fact she's just qualified with a first as a veterinary. She is a fantastic artist, and really, if anything, she should have gone into art school and studied art. But that's the other side of it. She has done very well in her degree, and she's got the qualifications to follow on a career in a vet surgeon. So it has both sides. But I bet you if you ask the girl one question, would you like to be an artist or associated with some kind of museum or art, a national gallery or something like that, I think she would swerve that way before she said, no, I want to be a vet.
Yeah, and it's both. That's why you'll notice, like, I didn't ask you guys what you wanted to do for a career. I asked you guys if you didn't have to work ever again, if I was just going to send you $10,000 a month for the rest of your life, what would you do with your time? Because the answer changes. Because people take into consideration, what can I make money at? What can I make money at with the least amount of effort? You know, like people do that. Even if we get into photography, there are so many people that are doing wedding photography because they think that that's the easiest way to make money as a photographer, as opposed to landscape. Like, people go back and forth, and it's just a mentality thing. You know, well, pine trees don't buy the portraits I take of them. So it's not, you don't understand because you're a portrait photographer, and so your subject is your client. This is true. On the other hand, more landscape photos are sold than any other kind of photograph in the world because most people don't want a portrait. Like, I have a beautiful family portrait, and I have a good-looking family, you know? My kids are cute when they're quiet and you can't hear them, when it's just a photograph of them, you know? And my husband, you know, now we have liquefy, so we just shrink his nose a little bit, and he's fine too. But at the same time, no matter how good of a portrait it is, chances are none of you want to buy a 20 by 30 print of my family portrait to hang on your walls. But you will buy a really beautiful landscape photo to hang over the fireplace or in the hotel lobby or, you know, any number of other places. Those images are, again, like, just universal in their appeal for everyone. So you don't know how hard it is to just be a portrait photographer and have your only client be the subject matter. You know, so everything's both sides. Like, people do that all the time, and it's funny because the things that we complain about are usually the opportunities others are wishing for. There's tons of landscape photographers that would love if every time they snapped a photo that, you know, whatever tree they were snapping, that state or that park or that, you know, tree would buy their portrait or buy a collection of 20 images. On the other hand, the portrait photographers have a harder time building a sustainable passive income because you're only getting paid for the work that you're doing while you're doing it, which means if you stop shooting, it stops selling and you don't have any income. You know, my passive income comes in from the book sales, which is actually me working as a teacher, not as an artist. So it really is just a mentality thing and a change of that. You know, like you see parents of young children and they're like, oh, if only you knew what I wouldn't give for one afternoon's quiet without the kids running around and screaming. Meanwhile, so-and-so person who doesn't have children is going, what I wouldn't give to hear children running around the house in the pitter-patter of little feet and having someone to call me mom. And both of them are very valid. Nobody's struggle is more or less real, but we spend so much time focusing on that and worrying about how we have it harder or we have it worse or what our hardships are, that we get stuck in that. We get stuck in the shadow and we forget that the light is around behind that that's causing that shadow cast in the first place. And when you can stop doing that, that's when you really start to see the growth and the success. You know, we could all learn a lesson from plants if we just learned to lean and grow towards the light instead of complaining that there isn't enough light over here. Which is pretty much what I'm going to be beating on you guys about for the next 10 levels.
Yeah, I watched your 5-minute blurb on time, and you know, one of the things that resonated with that, and then just what you were saying now, a number of years ago, I lost my job, and we came right to the brink. Like to look for the amount of money just to pay for medication for my wife, even for enough gas to get to work. And I live out in the country, so for me, in my current profession, I have to drive. I can't take a bus. I can't walk. I can't bike. Even in the wintertime, you wouldn't want to anyways. So we're right at the point where, you know, we're going to lose absolutely everything. And that burnt that fear out of me, but it also gave me a tremendous appreciation for everything that I do have. And that's, you know, that's really stuck with me, even to this day. Like I look at my job that I go to, which I love, people I work with. Do I have great days every day? Oh, hell no. I mean, I'm accountable for data centers across North America, and if one of them goes down at 3 in the morning, my phone rings and then I'm up. Is that fun? No, not particularly. But at the same time, I have a job, and there's dozens of people out there that don't have jobs, and it, you know, takes care of all the stuff that I want to do. So I have my health. I've got a, you know, a loving wife. I've got all these great things, and having gone through that process, which was not fun. I mean, a full year of unemployment is not fun. Gave me an appreciation that I don't think I could have possibly had before. I've always been grateful for what I had, not to the degree that that brought to me. And that's something that I've kind of embraced and kept with me. I'll never forget it. And it's, you know, it helped open my eyes to everything else around me. And I think it kind of comes into my art as well, as that I'm more observant of what's going on around me. The interactions I have with people, interactions I have with my environment, just basically everything. And I think if you're able to do that, to be able to, like you said, step out of the shadow and look at what's there and truly understand what it is, you stop looking at for the pieces that you don't have. If it's something that you don't have and you'd like to have, well, go get it. As opposed to, you know, lamenting that, oh, yeah, gee, I wish I had his lawn. So find out how he did it and go do it yourself. It's not going to drop into your lap.
But that's the thing, is that most people don't actually want to know. They just want to complain that so-and-so has a greener grass because the amount of work that it took so-and-so to get that, they're like, maybe I don't really want it. You know, I want it, I just don't want it bad enough to actually work for it. That's why everybody wants to win the lottery. You know? You can go ahead and keep buying the tickets. I'll just work for what I want. You know, I'm a big believer that, you know, persistence trumps talent, trumps skill, trumps connections, everything. It's really just about persistence. Like, you look at it, you know, we went with my daughter to Crystal Cave this year for her school trip, and they were talking about the water dripping and the formations that it carves in the rocks. And you would look at it and you would say a drop of water hit it against a rock. The rock wins, but it doesn't. And the water wins not because of strength, not because of its hardness. It wins because of its persistence. It's just persistence for continuous effort over and over again. And that's where people start to fail. And the thing is that everybody's so afraid of rejection. And I think that that's something that I think I got so much rejection when I was little that I just kind of built up a tolerance to it, and I don't have it anymore. I don't have that fear that most people have, because fear is temporary. You know, it is, failure is, you know, it's a victim of circumstance for a temporary situation. You have never failed at anything in your life. You have quit. That is the only time that failure continued. And you hear this all the time, and people go, oh, she's an overnight success. Well, no, she's in the spotlight right now and looks like an overnight success. But you didn't see the 10 years behind the scenes before that, you know? And it's that kind of stuff. Like, if you make, everybody talks about J.K. Rowling, you know, and the immense success that she had with Harry Potter. She's one of the wealthiest women in all of the UK, wealthiest people in all of the UK. She got denied for her book from publishers. I think it was like 13 times before she got her actual publisher, with people that said that it wasn't any good. They kick themselves every day now, you know. But let's go back further than that. She was on food stamps and welfare and couldn't afford an apartment, had to live with her sister, and was in between like shelters and fighting with the government about the fact that if she got part-time work that she made too much money to get assistance, but it wasn't enough to complete, and got stuck in that cycle, that everybody talks about. This is one of the wealthiest women who is worth millions and millions of dollars, probably one of the most famous artists of our lifetimes whatsoever, that is now a major motion picture that made 7 movies and is one of the most idolized characters of all time. And there were people that were telling her she wasn't good enough, and all the way back down to her childhood when they were telling her that she shouldn't focus on writing and that she should do something responsible, that she had a good head for math and she should become an accountant. And we'd never have that, and it just kills me to do that, because I look at people and I see so much potential, and there's other people, and I do believe that they come from a place of love. When somebody says, you should be responsible, you should make a good choice, really what they're saying in a misguided way is, I love you, and I'm worried about you, and I want to make sure that you're taken care of and that you have the ability to take care of yourself. Parents are famous for this. You know why? Because we're not always going to be here. And they are our existence, our reason for living. So we do that, but we do it in such a negative way, and our voice becomes their inner voice and starts telling them they can't do it, even when they get to the point that they can. So I'm very, very cautious of how I use my words when I'm teaching and when I'm around my children or my students, because people they don't have enough people telling them go for it. And usually that's all you need, because that voice will resonate with the inner voice that goes, yeah, I know, right? And it's funny because as soon as we start talking about this, every one of you is nodding your heads. So each of you are going, I know who that person is that encourages me. And you're also going, I know exactly who you're talking about that totally ruined my life and told me I wasn't good enough. And thanks a lot, so-and-so. But it's both. It's misguided, but it's still from a place of love. So you kind of just have to accept that and take it in and accept the love that comes with it and reject the message, And I think that's a good place to stop. So my Sphere 2 people, actually all of you in Convergence, your assignment for the day is, what is it that I have to say? What am I here for? And what am I creating that's going to outlast me? That's what I want the answers to by the end of the week.
Oh, you're writing 100 lines. I must do as Jessica says.
Yeah, but with one of those Harry Potter pens that like scars it on your eye.
And you got the wand.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, I have to go because I have a Path of the Protege Vanguard. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to chat about before we head out?
No, I'm happy. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, I will talk to you guys on Thursday.
Cheers for now. Cheers, bye-bye.
Ciao.